Oh, it's 11 o'clock.
Oh, right.
We'll call to order the I was going to say the GRF Marketing Task Force. I'm going to say the Rossmore Walnut Creek Marketing Task Force for January 14th. The roll call, Deborah?
Certainly. Walker,
Here.
Bentley,
Here.
Bollinger,
Here.
Dowling,
Here.
Keller,
Here.
Register, here, Shaw,
Here.
Nage is excused, Pranjali.
Here.
Thank you,
Hi,
everyone.
Pranjali.
Hi.
So any comments or revisions to the minutes that were in the agenda packet? No. Seeing none, they are approved as submitted. Thank you. Residents forum, Deborah.
All right, we have two written resident forum submissions I will read aloud. And then we have one in-person forum speaker. I'm gonna get my 2-minute timer up and rolling here. So the first is a letter from Lauren Schleben. Hold on, my process. I apologize. Okay. There we go. This is addressed to the Marketing Task Force. Hi, Linda. Please provide assistance and ideas regarding transportation without Rossmore not provided in response to your Marketing Task Force proposal. Can somebody mute their Zoom? I'm hearing it over here somewhere. Is there anybody have anything?
High pitched sound.
Yes, there's.
Is it just PCs or does it have to be connected? I'm on the wireless. Is that the problem?
It might be the
You're not.
Oh, I apologize. I'm starting over, I apologize. So she's addressing the Marketing Task Force in regards to transportation within and outside of Rossmore. Are you aware owner residents cannot access downtown Walnut Creek art, healthcare, shopping, restaurants, cinema, the leisure center, Walnut Creek activities and events, employment, religious services, friends, family, and more from Friday night at 6 p.m. through Monday or Tuesday, 8 a.m. During Thanksgiving holiday week, there were no downtown Walnut Creek services from Wednesday, 6 p.m. through Monday, 8 a.m. I agree Rossmore is no longer affordable, especially for cooperative owners half of Rossmore. The additional costs for the stresses placed upon owners to find transportation, which is already budgeted and paid for and promised by GRF, is substantial for the active and older adult owners who relocated to Rossmore, dependent upon or who later find themselves unable to drive, is untenable, especially in a time of increased costs and reduced services. The responsive provision of transportation services without Rossmore cries out for solutions. The 3-year temporary suspension of weekend transportation has resulted in a great deal of mental health crisis. This continued cruelty by GRF in denying transportation services, especially during the holidays, truly shocks the conscience. Demanding that Rossmore owners call the Rossmore Counseling Centers or suicide hotline is insulting and unresponsive. Please note that the weekday DAB, I believe that's dial-a-bus service, is in tatters and unreliable. Last week, during regularly scheduled DAB service following an outpatient procedure at Shadelands, I was refused transportation from Walnut Creek Bar, and that concludes the time. So I'm not clear how that addresses the Marketing Task Force, but it's something she would like to address.
Yeah.
Next person up is Roy Yang. Start this again. Roy Yang at 2209 Golden Main Road, number 2. I have prepared 60 PowerPoint slides, which we're not showing right now, for introducing Rossmore merits for future buyers. Merit 1, Rossmore is a longevity community for retirement. U.S. life expectancies are male, 74.8 years, and female, 80.2 year in 2022. At Rossmore, we shall have 53% residents, or 5,250 people older than 80.2 years old at the end of 2023. And he's referring to his slides. I have noted two major factors affecting our longevity. One, nature harmony, environment with enriched clear air, high oxygen, ions, so is our drinking water. The East SF Bay location has plenty of sunshine, and he's referring to his slides. Our residents' devotion shares many common interests together, and he's referring to additional slides. Merit 2. Between January and June in 2023, there were 227 new transfers. The Chinese total population estimated around 440 versus the total 9,095, or 4.42%. However, the Chinese newcomers were 72 units during that period, or 32% newcomers were Chinese. A niche market deserved our additional attention. And then he goes in to reflect to some slides that he was referring to. And that concludes his presentation. Next up, we have John Shaw. If you wouldn't mind coming up to the table right here because we record you. State your full name and Rossmore address.
John Shaw at 4033 Jurganata 7A. I've been here since 2006.
Go ahead.
What would you like to know? Why I'm here or what?
You've been, so you have, let me pause this little timer. So you have introduced yourself to wanting to speak to the residents forum. Are there any questions or concerns? What brings you here today and what perhaps would you like to?
Well, I have some expertise in marketing. I've been very interested in Rossmore. I've been on a few boards and I thought I'd come and just find out what the community, I'm looking to get involved in something. So this is a good opportunity to come here. I have some other things I'm interested in. And I had some marketing expertise, and I've been very good at expanding organizations. And one of end-of-life concerns, I thought I was dying of something, and I was misdiagnosed. So I go to the end-of-life concerns for the obvious reason. So I get there, the second meeting I'm at, they want to know if I join the board. I said, well, let me figure out what you're doing. One of the major problems they had was they couldn't get to 20. And I said, well, I think I can get you to 20. I got them to 32 people in a very short time frame so they could continue. Anyhow, I had some fun with that. I ran CERT for the first 2 years when I moved here. And I made a mistake of putting my hand up when they said, we've got 200 people in a group, but we don't have anybody to lead them. I came out of Menlo Park, where I had been on the CERT team there for the large church. And maybe one of the largest churches in the world. And so anyhow, when I came here, I looked around and thought somebody else put their hand up. I was the only one, so somebody said, okay, you're in charge. So anyhow, I had some fun with that, met a lot of great people, and they still come up and say, hey, those were good times. So I had a variety of reasons for to come here. Anybody have any questions?
Well, we don't directly respond, but thank you. We hope that you attend future meetings, and if you have any feedback or anything, you would always email us or speak during the residents forum.
I just want to know what you're doing, so I won't ask very many questions. I'll probably have some later, but.
Here's an agenda for you as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the residents forum.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And thank you all the residents for their input. And John, just so you know, residents are not permitted to speak during the meeting. It's just residents forum is the only time you have the opportunity to do that. So.
But if you have questions after, you can always.
Yes,
flag us
yeah,
down.
or emails. So just a brief chair report at the December GRF board meeting, which seems like 6 months ago. The board passed a motion to extend the timeline for the marketing task force to May of 2025. The original expiration date was February, so we've been given an additional 3 months. It also better aligns the timing with Aya and Pranjali. Their semester ends, I believe, in April, so we'll have time with them through April. Any questions? If not, we'll move on to Rossmore Walnut Creek brand name audit. And
All right. talk a little bit today about the brand. Right now, as we've talked many times, we have a lot of different labels that are attached to Rossmore, just plain Rossmore, Rossmore Walnut Creek, Golden Rain Foundation, GRF, the mutuals, et cetera. And we had talked at the last meeting about what would it look like if we wanted to make that shift towards Rossmore Walnut Creek. So for starters, stationery and business cards, most of these already have the Rossmore Walnut Creek logo. So you wouldn't be looking at a major refresh with these. Vehicles, all of the company trucks have the Rossmore Walnut Creek logo. The buses have the full logo on the fronts and sides and just the Rossmore name on the backs, but you do have Rossmore Walnut Creek on the buses as well. In terms of the signs, the main entrance sign and a half dozen of these location signs that you see throughout Rossmore, front and back sides, they just have Rossmore and the tree logo. That said, I did talk with John Wraith, our trust maintenance supervisor, and he said it'd be very easy to add Walnut Creek onto the first sign. The second sign, a little more complicated, but not undoable. There's a few additional signs that have Rossmore names in them, but it's things like neighborhood signs, Rossmore trails, exiting Rossmore. I'm not sure that you have as much of a need to have the full Rossmore Walnut Creek associated with those, especially because it doesn't have the logo. I was really looking at the things that were using the regular Rossmore logo. Uniforms, this is probably your biggest one. Almost all of them, except Custodia, some of the custodial staff have already started to switch over to Rossmore Walnut Creek as new custodial uniforms are actually ordered. But just about everything else is just Rossmore and the logo. There is no Rossmore Walnut Creek attached. Now, again, one of the ways that you could do this is to start to phase it in. So all new uniforms that were ordered could be ordered with the Rossmore Walnut Creek. And in about 5-6 years, you would see that full turnover happen. But go ahead.
Just on the uniforms, most of the people who wear the uniforms and they're in Rossmore. They're not out
Correct.
in, going
That's
out
correct.
there, right? So
Yes. So the bigger question that comes up is a rebrand if we're actually looking at renaming. There's sort of a whole nother layer to this if, as Dwight said earlier, instead of calling ourselves the GRF Marketing Task Force, we started to call ourselves Rossmore Walnut Creek Task Force. So a couple of ways that you could do this. You don't want to actually completely remove Golden Rain Foundation. That is too intricately tied with the trust agreement and with the bylaws. So changing those would be very laborious, but you can do something that's called doing business as. A DBA is essentially a trade name or a fictitious business name. So you're operating under that name. Everyone recognizes you under that name, but you don't have to necessarily change your legal entities. So DBAs are registered with the county, and it notifies the public that we're conducting business under that name other than what our legal name is. There are some pros to having a DBA. You increase your flexibility in case you want to expand your business. You can help your business market yourself a lot more effectively. Multiple businesses can actually operate under this one common name. And it avoids the complications of having to, again, change those legal corporation documents, your banking, your taxes, etc. But there are also some downsides to a DBA. You have confusion in that transition period of going from one known name to another. Over a period of time, everyone gets used to the new name and it's not as confusing, but right out of the gate, it can be tough. Some materials cannot be changed for legal reasons, things like government documents, bank checks. We don't know yet in terms of like the ballots for the Golden Rain Foundation board doesn't actually have to say Golden Rain Foundation. So there are some particulars we would still have to look into. You do not have any exclusive rights to the DBA outside of the county. So that means that outside of Contra Costa, anyone could still use Rossmore Walnut Creek. Not that I think they would, but again, if you don't actually make that your legal name, then you don't actually fully own it. And a DBA must be renewed every 5 years. It's minimal. You're looking at a $50 registration fee. It does have to run in the newspaper, but the great part is we have one. So it would run for free. So how would a DBA or how might a DBA be used in Rossmore? So right now, the Golden Rain Foundation name is used for boards and committees. It's in the bylaws and the articles of incorporation. As I mentioned, it's also in the trust agreement. All of the policies, procedures, and rules are preceded by GRF. Our business contracts are all under Golden Rain Foundation, and all of our banking is under Golden Rain Foundation. The mutual's name is used, Walnut Creek Mutuals, on all governing documents, including their bylaws and CC&Rs. And the Mutual Operations Division, you have agreements, contracts, and again, banking. So those are where right now, all of the Golden Rain Foundation or mutual names are attached. So if you're doing a DBA, you would have to address how many of these things, if any of them, you would like to have changed over to Rossmore Walnut Creek. And then when it comes to a name change, you want to also look at what becomes necessary in order to make that change. There are a lot of businesses who do this all the time. Weight Watchers changed themselves to WW. Facebook changed itself to Meta. This is one most people probably don't even know. Blue Ribbon Sports was the original name for Nike. Eventually, your brand can definitely supersede your previous brand. So in terms of doing this, you put together an internal rebranding team. This would include folks on the legal team, accounting, procurement, and regulatory. You would need to complete the legal filings. You would need to rebrand your signage. And then you have to develop a very comprehensive communications plan. You need to try to hit everybody every which way that you can. So you're looking at email announcements, press releases that would include going outside the gate, marketing materials, and utilizing the media. Again, not just inside the gate, but outside the gate. Website, social media, digital footprint. Rossmore, all on its own right now, is all over the internet. So there's a lot of places where we'd have to work to rebrand that to Rossmore Walnut Creek. And then obviously you would have meetings and probably a big launch event to kind of make it celebratory. And then you're also looking again at converting your brand assets. So this would be uniforms, how we package, including the envelopes that we send out. And then consider what the impact is on your existing brand equity. So how will making that change impact the things that we already have under the Rossmore only label, or under the Golden Rain Foundation label, or under the mutuals, et cetera. And then you have to plan budget. There's going to be money attached to this. So once you figure out what your rebranding plan is, you would affix the numbers to that and then bring it to the board for approval from a budget standpoint. That's it for the rebrand.
So just to clarify, we're talking about changing Rossmore to Rossmore Walnut Creek.
Correct, that's
We're not
what the task
Talking
force
about
discussed last
changing
time.
Golden Rain, we're not talking about changing the mutuals.
The question that was left last time was, are we looking at Rossmore Walnut Creek as just sort of a superficial name change? Or do you want to go deeper? Do you want to do a doing business as, and you want to fully replace things like Golden Rain Foundation and the mutual names? In particular, Mutual Operations Division was brought up last time.
So that
All
would
I'm saying is that's kind of what the task force would need to decide. What level are you looking at as in terms of making a recommendation?
So what I'm hearing you say, or what I'm implicit in your recommendations, and correct me if I'm misinterpreting this, is that it seems like Golden Rain and the mutuals, because they're the legal entity and they're pretty much only internal anyway, keep those as they are. And then over time, or register as a DBA, and then over time, switch all the regular Rossmores over to Rossmore Walnut Creek. That's what I'm implicit in this, is what I'm interpreting.
If you're looking for the least expensive, the least confusing, the one that requires the least amount of time, yes, that would be the way to go. But I'll say up front, I'm not making a recommendation. It's really what you guys think is best for Rossmore as part of this larger marketing initiative. Do we need to go the full route of completely changing Golden Rain Foundation to Rossmore Walnut Creek Foundation? Do we want to go that direction? Or are we looking at more of that surface level in terms of our brand name? And that's really up to you guys.
So if I could just say, I think what I'm thinking of is what faces the residents. What do they see? And so it's very, and employees. The most distressing thing I heard was when Ann said that we're out on Indeed and all of the recruiting websites saying Golden Rain Foundation is hiring. That's not who people work for here. They work for Rossmore. And we want people to work for Rossmore and understand the brand and marketing and visioning that we use for Rossmore Walnut Creek, not for GRF, not for MOD. I think it's striking that the MOD workers travel in trucks that don't say MOD, they say Rossmore Walnut Creek. And so we've got mixed messaging going on in terms of what residents see and feel. We're kind of used to it because we've lived here for a while. For new residents, it's even more confusing. And so I do believe a DBA for certain things makes a lot of sense when we're facing residents and employees to think in terms of Rossmore Walnut Creek.
And all external media and realtors and businesses that are subcontracting. Yeah, any of the external things.
Yes. I mean, does it go so far as it's no longer the GRF board and it's the Rossmore Walnut Creek Community Board? Or you know, I mean, could it go that far? Does MOD become Rossmore Property Management? It actually says what it is rather than guessing MOD. By the way, we can't touch the mutuals. And this conversation has nothing to do with the mutuals because they're their own legal entity.
So it sounds like with the DBA, we have that option to go that far, and the question is the cost that's involved, and that's the limiting factor, it would seem. But I mean, I think Golden Rain Foundation is not necessarily a positive for the outside.
I would agree with you. Ted?
Also, I think that you brought it up a little bit on the social media. You type in Rossmore and you got a list that takes you all over the country. And if we're looking for a way to market Rossmore easier, because everybody when you go on the internet, you don't want difficulty, you want ease. If they see Rossmore Walnut Creek, they know right where they're going. They don't have to see Rossmore, you know, because you type in Rossmore, you can wind up in New Jersey.
I will say, since I started this job a little over 6 years ago, that was one of the things I found out my very first week here. Somebody called and was asking questions, and I went to my coworkers. I'm like, do you know where this is? And they're like, not in here. And it was Rossmore, New Jersey. And so that was the first time I thought, oh, we have an identity problem. And I already started replacing regular Rossmore with the Rossmore Walnut Creek logo. So a lot of our digital footprint is already started down that road, well down that road. Including, and we'll talk a little bit more about this when we discuss the SEO, snatching up things like the social media accounts, all of the Rossmore Walnut Creeks. Javier is our web manager. He and I have been busy putting our stamp all over all of those. Even if we do nothing with them, at least now we control them, so. Yeah.
So what do you need from us then? I think there seems to be consensus that that's the way to go.
So if that's the way to go, then again, we can now do that deeper dive and we can talk about more particular where we really need to start making some changes. So if you're saying that you're really talking about wanting to go down the path of not being known as the Golden Rain Foundation Board, what would that look like? Going down the path of being known to our vendors, not necessarily as the GRF, but as Rossmore Walnut Creek. Again, what would that need to look at? So we'd be looking at things like, how would we use a DBA in terms of contracts going forward? How would we use a DBA in terms of things like putting together our hiring practices with HR? So I would need to now go to each individual department and say, let's talk about where you use Golden Rain Foundation and how easy or how difficult it would be to replace that name. That way we can have essentially a task list, and then we can start to break down which of these things might actually cost money and how much. That gives you a better perspective at the next meeting as to whether or not you want to be all in or make this a phased in approach.
Could I suggest also that you create maybe as an umbrella over that as an intention? So that I think it would help for everybody when they're making decisions, both in terms of finance, time, marketing goals, because all those things play in.
I have a question.
Yes, Amy?
Hi, guys. So we are all in agreement that we want it to be a deep dive. I didn't really hear everybody say yes on that. So I'd like to know if we're all in agreement with that and start to move in that direction.
Yes. Well, before we, because Ted, go, Amy, we'll get to that in just a second. Ted, you.
Okay.
So I'm thinking, what is the harm in doing, I've done DBAs before. What is the harm in doing the DBA? Because if there is things that have to be done down the line, they might be all at once or done little pieces at a time. But the DBA is the most important thing that has to be there first. So my question is, do we have to wait till the end of our term here to push that up to the board to suggest that this is a motion that can be done? Can we do that motion that we should be a DBA done for Rossmore, Walnut Creek now?
Yes.
Push that to the board.
Yes. So
Okay.
are you making a motion?
I can make that motion.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. What would you like to say?
I want to make a motion that we make a recommendation to the board that we put out a DBA for Rossmore, Walnut Creek to be submitted as soon as possible.
Oh, we have a second.
Hold on one second. I would love to have the wordsmither make sure that that's very clear to the board.
Yes.
If I was to do an action item and plunk it on their board agenda,
I will.
is it clear and cost?
There's one thing one hurdle we do need to talk about, because this is the first time we're saying, yes, let's do this. I cannot tell you today what the financial ramifications of just trying to be a DBA will be.
That's for
I know-
that's for the finance committee and board to decide. What we're
Yeah.
saying is we want to move ahead with this initiative.
From a marketing
Yes.
standpoint, that's what makes sense.
Yes.
So the motion is on the table to recommend to the board that we put out a DBA for Rossmore, Walnut Creek to be submitted as soon as possible. Is there a second?
Yep, Kevin
Kevin
seconded.
seconded.
Thank you. Does anybody need an amendment to that motion? I saw your lip.
I just think we should change it to explore. Again, the only thing I would say about this is we don't know yet, because this is the first time DBA has fully come up. We don't have a lot of those particulars. So if we go into the finance committee at the end of this month, they're gonna say, how much is this gonna cost? And I can't answer that right now. Can I answer it by the finance committee meeting? Maybe. But again, I now would need to go to each department and at least have a better understanding of what we're talking about needing to change, so that I'm not going to the board and saying, sure, let's do this. And then afterwards, they're like, I had no idea it meant changing this, this, and this. So could we change it to explore this assumption?
Hold on just a second. So let's also recognize the process here.
Mhm.
So this recommendation actually goes to the planning committee for its consideration before it goes any further. So there will be time and further exploration through that process.
If the last part of the motion says as soon as possible,
Oh,
that says to me, and again, could you read it again? So they can.
Yes, a recommendation to the board that we, which is nebulous, put out a DBA for Rossmore, Walnut Creek to be submitted as soon as possible.
To be submitted as soon as possible. It doesn't say that we're going through it doesn't say we're going through those full channels. So that's why I know it seems minor, but explore the possibility of acquiring a DBA as soon as possible.
Well, aren't we just asking them to consider the concept? And then they would need to move it to the finance and move it along. We're just presenting the concept of the DBA. Is that correct?
Actually, that motion is asking the board to submit for a DBA.
Or
Mm,
how about consider submitting?
There.
Okay,
I like
so,
that word,
so the thing about the DBA, it doesn't cost us, it costs us whatever it costs to put it in in your paper. That's
And the
really
reg-
all
and the
it's gonna cost
registration-
us.
And the registration with the county,
Yes, but it's not committing us to do anything with it.
It does,
So
well,
it's-
it does, you're right, it doesn't commit you to do anything with it, but it does put you now officially on that 5-year timetable, right? Because you would have to renew it again in 5 years. We haven't even fully brought to the board yet the idea that we want to change to Rossmore Walnut Creek. So you're talking about kind of doing two things at once, which is fine. My recommendation would be, first motion should be, we want to be Rossmore Walnut Creek. Second motion would be DBA, or combine them together to say, we want to do a DBA to be now known as Rossmore Walnut Creek, and go from there.
And should we say to be, reviewed by the planning committee, so it goes through the process instead of saying to the board?
You don't need to say that.
I think
But
if
it's
we-
gonna go through the
It's gotta go through
process.
the process,
And
okay.
if we change it to considering that, it makes that implication that it's going through
Okay.
planning, finance, and then the full
Okay.
board before anything is changed.
I'm
But
good with that change.
I didn't hear, I need to hear it in full, but a person or a member. How would you like to do it?
I'd
So,
like to amend that to say, we would like that to be, Rossmore Walnut Creek to be considered for a DBA.
you can leave the as soon as possible if you want, as long as we have considering in there.
That's
We're
it.
taking
I think
a
that
proper
once it gets
path.
on the deal, it'll move forward.
so I need to read this out loud because for me, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So, a motion was made and second to recommend to the board, Rossmore Walnut Creek be considered for a DBA.
Name Rossmore.
Yeah, the Golden Rain
I
Foundation.
know, I need a.
Yeah, so
Wait a
how about
second.
how about
How
I
about
say it and then,
rebranding?
yeah, so how about I say it and then you tell me if this is right? Are you okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, have the Golden Rain Foundation Board consider rebranding as Rossmore Walnut Creek through a DBA
perfect.
As soon as possible.
as soon as possible.
All right,
Yeah.
Heather?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right.
All right, any further questions? All right, roll call, Deborah?
Certainly, Walker,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Bollinger,
Yes,
Dowling,
Yes.
Color,
Yes.
Register,
Yes.
and Shaw.
Yes.
And I don't believe the fellows have voting rights, correct?
No.
Okay, it's unanimous.
All right, thank you, and thank you, Anne. So next up is an update from our working groups, mission and vision. Kathleen?
Okay, so in our November meeting, we had a just very productive discussion regarding the proposed mission and vision statement. And so the committee went back, so to remind you, the committee was myself and Ted and Linda. And we added in into our draft statement, and keep in mind, these are still drafts and they will continue to be drafts for a while, that some of the comments that were made by the group. And then based on those comments, as well as just discussion areas, we amended the mission and vision draft to be as it states on the paper. I'll read it. So we changed it specifically to Rossmore Walnut Creek Mission Draft. To serve our active adult community in a welcoming and safe residential environment where abundant amenities, idyllic natural beauty, enriching activities, and a low-maintenance lifestyle provide peace of mind and the freedom to live fully. And if you recall, the mission is for what we do. So that is sort of a present tense kind of thing. Let me pause right there and ask my committee members if you had any other things you wanted to add to the mission comment. Linda or Ted, anybody else have any questions or?
I think it's fabulous.
I do too. I like it.
Like it, idyllic.
Do we have a motion to recommend this marketing mission statement?
I moved that we accept it.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, Michael?
So are you recommending to the GRF board, or are you just accepting in general for your task force to move forward for your final report?
This is a recommendation to the Rossmore Walnut Creek Board.
So if I'm, let's reword this, so just
Should we do them
stating,
together or you want to do them separate?
I think we should do them separately.
Okay.
Yeah.
just stating, take it as is, right? What was your motion, Amy?
I moved to accept Rossmore Walnut Creek Mission draft amended to accept as written.
Mission statement as, and this is a recommendation to the board, so motion was made to chair board accept. Okay, so Bollinger made the motion, are there any seconds? Sorry.
Michael seconded. You okay with those changes, Michael? Okay, any other comments? Let me just say that what we're doing here is establishing the foundation of the other work that is to come. And we need sign off by everybody along the way so that we don't get to May and somebody or the board goes, oh, that's silly. So I really appreciate everybody understanding that these motions are really important right now. So with that, roll call, Deborah.
Certainly. Walker,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Bollinger,
Yes,
Dowling,
Yes.
Heller,
Yes.
Register, yes, Shaw,
Yes.
it's unanimous.
Thank you. So Kathleen.
Okay, thank you. And so now we have our vision, and the vision is for aspiration. So this is what everybody in the community wants to go towards. And so the Rossmore Walnut Creek vision draft is to be the leading active adult community in the Bay Area, offering residents a dynamic and inclusive lifestyle surrounded by nature, where every day is an opportunity for adventure, friendship, and personal growth.
I'd like to move there.
Yeah, that's what I
That's
was
what Can I live there?
is that where we live?
Well, that's our aspiration. I think that probably the most aspirational thing, well, actually, we probably are already there, but we probably want to maintain it and make sure both of these, the purpose of them is to guide decisions so that as different decisions are being made by the various people in the community and the various leadership and management groups, does this decision support the mission and the vision? That's really kind of, so that everybody's kind of on the same page and we don't have a situation where it's like, well, like for example, the idea of nature and idyllic natural beauty being in both of them, that sets a precedent to say, we want to maintain that. We want to make sure that stays a part of what we're doing.
And do people think that Rossmore Walnut Creek property management employees would understand this vision?
I think it's easy to understand.
I do too. The only thing, I had one question. When we originally were talking about vision, there was one word that has now been dropped that actually kind of plays to what Roy was talking about with the increase of Chinese Americans who are moving here. We had the word diverse and now it's not there.
We put it inclusive.
So you decided on inclusive
I
instead,
think
okay.
with the discussion, and correct me if I've misinterpreted this, was that diverse was a little bit triggering for some political situations. It's kind of right now.
Mhm.
And that inclusive was a little bit softer, but still intentionally similar. So
And
is
as
there
we
any,
said
I don't know
before,
if there's any discussion on that, but that was what we discussed last time.
yeah, and I think what we said was diverse can mean so many different things to different people. Is it income? Is it ethnicity? Is it religion? Whereas inclusive just means, come on in, you're welcome.
Yeah.
It's just that
Welcome, I like
inclusive is now attached to lifestyle and not residence. That's the only difference there. An inclusive lifestyle is different than being inclusive in terms of the residents, in terms of your target audience. It's the only thing I just want to be sure everyone understands. That's what that vision now says.
Do you think that it precludes
No, it doesn't.
inclusivity?
It doesn't preclude it. It just doesn't put it forefront as part of your vision. It's now more, it's stated here, but it isn't part of the vision. And again, the thing to keep in mind is your vision statement is going to continue to go forward. So as other residents come in and they're unaware of what's happened here, they may read this and say, okay, inclusive lifestyle, but not necessarily inclusive. And again, the part of the reason I'm bringing this up is I hear this from a lot of residents who talk about when they're prospective residents, what they're constantly asking me, what is the makeup of Rossmore? And it isn't something we can answer because we don't actually track those statistics. I can tell you gender, I can tell you age, but I cannot tell you what our racial or ethnic makeup is. But that is important to a lot of people. We now have several clubs in here that are committed to that as part of their own mission. And so, and the GRF board, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 or 4 years ago, added as part of their own statement, added diversity as part of it. I understand not wanting necessarily to use the word diverse because of its connotation. I'm just saying, I just want to be sure if we move forward with the vision statement, everyone understands that we did drop that part.
I understand what you're saying. I just, another comment regarding that is that no one has brought up the intent to recruit diversity. In other words, we didn't really discuss this, but the acceptance of diversity and the recruitment of diversity are two very, very, very different things.
Yes, they are.
And I haven't heard anyone say that that was something that we wanted to do. If there are certain, and maybe we didn't really address the issue of values yet, which is potentially the third part of the mission, vision, and values. Potentially, that is something that we could add to the values. But I don't know if there's any other comments or thoughts.
So is the word lifestyle that you
No, it's
are
just, again,
questioning or-
inclusive,
Lifestyle
yeah,
confusing.
inclusive is describing lifestyle. It's not describing residence. So you're talking about your vision being having an inclusive lifestyle here. Lifestyle and residence, they're just different. And there's nothing wrong with this. I just want to say that up front. It was just the last time we were talking, and I know it was a bigger conversation because we were talking vision and target audience at the same time. The word diverse residents was brought up a few times. So I just wanted to be sure that the task force understands that this vision statement has put inclusive with lifestyle instead of the residents themselves. Nothing wrong with that if that's the vision. I just want to be sure everybody knows that's what they're voting on.
I'm not sure what an inclusive lifestyle is.
Yeah.
So again, if you're using it interchangeably with diverse, it's diverse lifestyle. So it would be saying that this is a community that could have religious groups, ethnic groups, people who are active in sports, people who have a sedentary lifestyle. That's inclusive, is everybody is included as part of Rossmore. In terms of the amenities and what you'll find here, amenities, activities, those types of things. It isn't necessarily a lifestyle, is not a person. That's all I'm saying. That's just the distinction there.
Kevin?
In terms of demographics for Rossmore, can we get that from the census?
To a degree. So the census breaks it down by zip code, which would include everybody just outside the
Okay.
gate that are part of 94595.
Okay. Census tracts aren't smaller than the zip code?
Yeah, I mean, again, the hard part with this is when a property is sold, there is a form and you can check the box, decline to state, or just not check it. And most people just don't check it. So because so many choose not to check it, it isn't something that our member records track because it would not be accurate. So you wouldn't want to put something out there that was inaccurate.
So my personal opinion, I think this says it very well. I like Kathleen's suggestion that perhaps values are tackled next that can address that. Also, we're going to be talking later in the agenda about target audience, and that's really where we're going to talk about targeting various audiences and niche elements. So I'm fine with this as it, I think it's beautiful. We have a motion.
make a motion?
Yeah.
Make a motion that the Rossmore Walnut Creek Vision Statement be as stated in this document and moved,
Recommended to the board.
recommended to the board.
Second.
Okay, Michael seconded. Any other discussion? All right, roll call.
I'm sorry, hold on. It was Michael,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Edlin,
Yes.
Ballinger,
Yes,
Dowling,
Yes.
Color,
Yes.
Register. Yes. Shaw,
Yes.
it's unanimous.
Okay, thank you, and thank you to Linda and Ted and Kathleen for that work on mission and vision. Do you guys want to tackle values? Are we at that point?
That was not part of our, we were just doing vision and statement, I think.
No,
Yeah.
does this committee want to go on and work
Oh.
on the values?
Oh.
Ted's excited. Well, we can have other volunteers work on this, but,
I thought you were done.
but I think it would be good to tackle values next, don't you think?
Should we do that after we do the target audience so that we know more about what that value should
We
be?
could, so we'll add it to the agenda for next meeting. We'll talk
Okay.
about values.
Okay.
I think we need probably some discussion about what do we want the values to encompass, because that could be like, bleh, you know, all over the board, so
That's true, that is true.
literally and figuratively.
But we like blah. All right, target audience. So, I'll do it. Okay,
At our last meeting, we presented a list of all of the things that people looking at a community like Rossmore are caring about, the things that are on their priority list. And we listed 10 different items, including the amenities, the beauty, the safety, all of the things that we have here as positive attributes. So now we're moving on to the concerns and the care-abouts for the current residents and other groups. So for the current residents, we figured that they want to enjoy the same things on the new buyers list as people moving into Rossmore, because that's why they moved here. Maintain the existing community service levels and staffing, including landscaping, to maintain the valley's beauty. Utilize existing and future channels of communication besides the Rossmore News. We thought that there ought to be more opportunities to communicate some of the things that are important here, because not everyone reads the Rossmore News, surprisingly enough. Community and home insurance issues are on their minds, increasing cost of home association dues, and the increasing cost of new infrastructure projects. Not to mention the pickleball courts. And any comments about current residents' concerns?
Where did this information come from?
Our committee,
So it's
just
your
our
views.
brainstorming and
Okay, thanks.
because Amy's lived here a long time.
it's all my fault. Okay.
that's what happens when you're not here, Amy.
Yeah, yes.
Any other comments?
Just, so the increase of the cost of the HOA dues and increasing cost of new infrastructure projects, those were I kind of understand where that could be a concern for people. But what I think that because we're a 60-some-year-old property, we're not brand new. And a lot of times we're going up against the new Del Webbs and the new buildings that are doing, and those are all spectacular projects, you know, with all the new design and the newest stuff. I can see that as a concern, but it bothers me a little bit that it is not maybe put someplace else as, what do we need to do to be able to keep ourselves up on the higher end of the list for places they want to live in. You know what I'm trying to say there? I don't know that this is a real, I I get it, the concern is from the people who live here, but if everything just stopped today, we're not going to fix anything anymore. And how that would look in 10 years. So I don't know that we can do that.
Can I position this as at least how I'm looking at this? I think this is like market research. That's why I was asking for the, this is not, in my view, a directive on how to market. This is input from, this is why I was asking, like, well, where did this come from? Do we?
Yeah, this is just our input as we move forward with the target market concept.
I mean, you're 100% right. You can't just stop and go, oh, well, things have to be done.
Because that's never gonna, those last two are never gonna go away because what our needs are to be a premier community.
Right.
If I can flip it, if you know that's the concern, then that's part of what marketing needs to address. So what you then do is you say, okay, we need to show our target audiences, what do you get for your HOA dues? So that they compare it to what they're paying now. If you're paying $200 a month for landscaping and you come in here and find out that the landscaping per month is $23 in your coupon, you see the value in that, and now that has put into perspective what that increasing HOA fee is giving you. You see what I'm saying? That becomes part of that bigger marketing picture. So it is important to understand what the concerns are. So as you're building your target audience, you know the types of folks that you are actually targeting. And that wouldn't necessarily then be somebody who is looking for affordable senior housing. It's somebody who's looking for something that will be comparable to what they have now in terms of what they're paying, or even better so that they can grow with the coupon. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's why I think having it on the list is not necessarily a negative.
Yeah, I think there's also two aspects to the communication. One is the proactive communication that we'll do. What do we want to say, or what do we think we should say, going out to the market, going out to the residents, whomever. And then there is the concerns and objections that people have as a secondary thing. So maybe we can get them to the point like, oh, Rossmore Wallet Creek, that sounds pretty cool. I should look at that. But what about this? But what about this? And they have all like a set of questions. Typically in my world, there's about 30 questions that people have, that somebody has. And then you have to, as a marketing group and as a sales team, you have to develop responses to those. And so if you know that one of the things is going to be, whoa, sticker shock on the HOA, then how do you answer that, to the point kind of about building on what Anne was saying? How do you answer that in a way that makes people go, oh, that makes sense. I can get beyond that now, or it's still a little bit of an issue, but not as much as I'm gaining on these other things.
Successful sales and marketing is a lot about overcoming objections. And these could potentially be objections why people, here may not be very happy, but how do you overcome those? And that's part of what marketing should do.
Or again, that's not necessarily the audience you're targeting to. If you know that up front, that is a big concern, and I know we haven't got to the survey part yet, but that's part of what the survey can help address, then you may say to yourselves, okay, we have to stop targeting that audience because we know we can't meet that expectation.
But I think it overflows because the people who want to buy here, one of the objections I hear is the cost of the coupon, the HOA dues. So it's not only the residents, but a lot of people looking to move here, that's an objection they have. And I don't think they realize the value that's inherent in it. And that's what we can do marketing wise.
Kevin?
The other thing that Rossmore brings to people, and as I've been talking to people potentially moving in, I've been sharing that RE/MAX book. And it's got that one page that compares, what people are paying outside the gate, what they're paying inside the gate. And I sold my house recently in Hayward, but I'm still getting forwarded mail from Hayward, and their sewer and water rates are going up from $40 a month in like 3 years to $70 a month. A friend of mine has trouble swimming outside, so he uses the indoor pool, which was closed. And he went to the Forma gym, which is right outside the gate here. It's $150 a month. And so it's just shocking, like what people are paying outside the gate and compared to, you know, the beautiful, so we have, like Ted said, we need to maintain them inside the gate.
Okay, well, let's continue through your list.
So the next group are the adult children of potential residents who many times are the ones that find Rossmore for their parents as a potential place to live. They certainly want their parents to enjoy all of the things that the new buyers enjoy. And the other concern that they have is that their parents are in a safe gated community near a major medical centers. I've heard a number of people that have moved from rural areas to here because of that exact thing, being close to major medical centers. Realtor concerns, how to educate outside realtors about Rossmore. We've focused a lot, I think, in our marketing efforts on the realtors around Rossmore, but people like Dwight have even mentioned their realtor didn't identify Rossmore as a potential place for him to live when he started looking. So some of the outside Rossmore, certainly realtors need to know about Rossmore and how to market it. Website marketing video showing all the amenities would be great. We talked a little bit about the Rossmore Ambassador Program where residents could be trained to do tours. And realtors are no doubt concerned about the growing competition of new 55 plus communities like the one we just saw the brochure for in San Ramon. For the staff need to understand Rossmore's mission and vision. They need adequate training and development for all of the GRF employees.
Oh, the Rossmore Walnut Creek employees?
Yes, the Rossmore Walnut Creek.
Thank you.
I should scratch that out. They need to provide good customer service to the residents, and they want to be treated with friendliness and respect by the residents.
I think these are all good. I want to talk about a couple other things. I think it was at a finance committee meeting of the Rossmore Walnut Creek Board Finance Committee meeting. A couple of the finance committee members didn't understand the services that were provided by Rossmore Property Management. And I was surprised by that. And then I thought, well, we don't really market that. So a target audience is actually mutual boards, mutual officers, and residents of what MOD, Rossmore Property Management, actually does comprehensively. Because when you look at a property management website company that offers those services, it's quite extensive. And we don't toot our own horn of what's available to residents.
Also, the price at which we do it at and the return back, it's a zero profit. It's a non-for-profit business that is run here.
Yeah. And then staff, I'm glad you included staff because I think that's really important in terms of employees understanding all of the things that we've been talking about so that they understand our residents. Roy Yang in his resident forum comments talked about the Chinese community and targeting them. I guess that gets into all the different targets that we could be talking about, whether it's LGBTQ or people of color or Chinese, whatever. It's another thing to consider, but we're really getting into the little branches on the tree.
Can I add one thing? Something's been on my list under realtors, investors. The way that Rossmore actually improves the actual residences, remodels, rebuilds, and they're actually working on interior services within the buildings, like redoing the wiring, redoing the plumbing, et cetera, is through investors and remodeling people, contractors that are all involved in Rossmore. I don't know that it's done any other way really in wholesale. So for me, answering their questions and making sure they understand the processes for all the things that have to happen if you're gonna come in and invest, which I actually think we do want them to, because the buildings themselves are starting to, and the residences are starting to get real run down inside. So, I mean, they're a major audience for us. I don't know how to say it otherwise. The people that are interested in coming in and fixing it up. They're kind of important to us.
How do you, so could you put a label on? that
Flippers.
word?
They call it flippers.
Flippers.
The editor.
But it's not always them, you know, when I moved in, there was no way that my wife wanted to live in the spot that we walked into. And I told her, we're not moving in here, we're moving into something else. But we just need the amenities that it had. It offered 2 bedrooms and 2 baths. And I says, that's what you wanted, that's what we got. Then we got it in as a personal one. So I think you're finding personal people doing the same thing that I did too. It's not always just flippers.
It's an
Almost
equity
everybody
investment.
wants their little touch when they go in, and that touch is always an improvement. And so every one of them are stepping up. I don't know of anybody who just, very few, just walk in and keep it just the way it is when they walk in the door.
And that's sometimes how target audiences work, right? So you're saying investors, and under that it's branching, where you have the kind that Linda's talking about, actual contractor flippers, and residents who are looking to make a renovation to build up their equity.
Yep.
So we just happen to live in an area that's very, very wealthy, and we have lots of people thinking about what they're gonna do next, and that includes Silicon Valley people. So as much as I can, I try to nurture those people in. You know, you don't have to live here, we can work on it, and then you can retire. Those types of issues are coming up more and more, and it may be something we wanna think about because it actually improves Rossmore.
Question to you for the minutes. Just to clarify your suggestion, you're wanting to provide some sort of marketing overview materials on the steps and who to contact for these home flippers about our alterations and renovations, correct?
Or consider them, I was just saying, consider that type of investment community that's coming into Rossmore and buying in here as an audience.
Add them to the audience
Okay,
list. I don't think we should call them flippers, though, I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is
That's what I was
investors.
asking if there was,
Maybe
you call them investors, but when you said investors, I thought of money people, and I think you're talking about beyond that, because they're, I
Are
don't
the
know, maybe.
contractors buying, or is it somebody buying and hiring the contractors? Probably both
Improvement should
ways.
probably be thrown in there
We have
somewhere.
people coming in, hiring contractors, we have contractors buying and fixing them up and selling them through realtors. We have contractors trying to find people to buy something that they'll fix up for them. I mean, we have this whole world,
Contractors are more involved than I would imagine.
yeah.
And now you're identifying the real challenge that comes out of being a marketing task force. Target audiences, look at how many we've got now. They're all over the map. And that's fine if that's what we really want to do, is try to develop a marketing plan that really appeals to all of them. Or are we gonna get to the point where we're gonna know that there's distinct marketing plans based on distinct target audiences?
I
And
don't think those are not in conflict with another. I think you
Yeah,
have sort of the overarching marketing plan.
Yeah.
And then you can have child plans for different audiences depending on what you're.
I think they're all important though, because they do
Yeah.
come, they all add value.
So I would think we'd have a major target audience, and then for some of the smaller groups, we just don't want to do anything that's going to be negative to them, rather than have a full-blown marketing effort toward the contractors. And
I think we're ready for any recommendation at this point. I think we've identified lots of target audiences and where we want to perhaps go with that. By the end of the meeting, I want to talk about, you know, what our short-term goals can be in terms of accomplishing some of these. So if we can move on, and I thank Mike and Kevin's not here, and Amy.
I'm here.
Thank you for your work on that. So next, let's talk about surveys. And who wants to take?
So target audience is going to stay on the agenda, something we'll be talking about.
Yes, yep. Who wants to handle surveys?
Well,
Amy,
Kevin,
Kathleen?
I've done one and so either Amy or Kevin, do you want to?
do it.
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin, because I'm kind of out of the loop here a little.
So Amy and Kathleen and I met about the survey. We came up with a survey Survey's purpose is to gain a clear understanding of the attitudes, needs, and experiences of a new home buyer. We're looking to survey participants purchasing homes since January 2022, so about 2 years out. Using a survey monkey via invitation sent by Ann. Survey schedule would start in February of this year, and as possible, if we don't get enough responses, we would possibly consider doing a mailing. I would suggest we have some kind of a reward, like $100 gift certificate or something that gets people's attention. So
Food, everybody likes food.
well, I guess a gateway, get out the Creekside Grill, we can offer a Creekside Grill gift certificate. So some of the questions would be, what are the main reasons you moved to Rossmore? And people can select 4 different options there. What other senior communities did you seriously consider before choosing Rossmore? Third question was, how did you first become interested in Rossmore? So, how did they first learn about Rossmore? I think is important. Before moving to Rossmore, what have you appreciated additional information? What other information did they need? Did they weren't getting before they moved into Rossmore? Fifth question is, how likely are you to recommend Rossmore to someone else? And then just the demographic information.
Any comments? Thank you guys for putting that together. Ted?
So on the first one, you have 9 options, but you're only on what is the main reasons for moving Rossmore? You have 4, only check 4,
Right.
but you have 9 options.
Yes.
Shouldn't it be at least better than half, like 5?
We could,
Because
so
I picked 5 off of it,
This
but I
was-
can't do that. I could only pick 4 and there was
the
more.
specifics, so if 5 is the reason, or 5 is the number, then that's fine. What we don't want to do is pick all that apply. Because
Yes,
you get into,
no, I agree with that.
you get into a situation.
But
for
you're
those-
less than half of what the options are available, and I'm just trying to get as much information as I can. I think the number to pick, which should be more than half of what you have on there. So if they do pick 5, because we're picking out of that, it's gonna give us information that we're gonna use to
It's gonna
market.
give us our price.
Okay, excuse me, there's another option here, which we can ask the participants to grade them as most important to least important, and they can check every one. So if they're 5, they would say, most important, put 1, down 2, 3, 4, 5. So you're not, your pool is a better target. You're getting better information. If you have 5 out of 9, that's a pretty random sample. I
So
think if,
I'm gonna disagree with you on that, Amy, because I think you're just getting different information. You're not getting better information. Because arguably, someone could come in and rate 4 or 5 to all of them, because we know all of these are important.
Yes,
What we don't know is what should we focus on? Because if you get into a situation where you've got, we have a lot of stuff that we can talk about. It's like, what do you push forward first and what is most important?
well, you're not gonna get that if you have picked 5 out of 9. How do you get the first?
Because when you tally them, you will be able to see that, which did people choose as their top 4 or 5. And so you will know that, 80% of the people picked proximity to family as in their top 4. So you know that as a group, that is probably the most important thing that we can focus on.
I think that's a lot of assumptions, but that's fine with me.
In the market research that I always worked for a market research company, and this was one of the major ways that we were able to get priorities from our respondents.
What about the ranking?
I'm sorry.
What about ranking them?
Ranking is, we could do that. It's a little bit more challenging for the for the respondent. So we were trying to keep this to something they could whip out in a few minutes.
That's the point right there, that ranking takes a long time. If you got to put a rank on it, these are gonna be jumping back and forth, a little scribble here and that. You just increase your 5 to 7 minutes up to maybe 10 or 15, and they'll get bored if that's the first question. They'll say, this is too much work.
As Kathleen said, the ranking will come out of the totals
Yeah.
that respond, so. Okay, moving on.
One
Other
more
comments?
question.
Can we entertain other ones?
Yeah, well, I got this on the same line, but
Actually, that was the thing that I said would be the other option is to rank them. I ask people to rank them, so.
And we could, it's trade-off of time.
I think we found with the food and beverage study that
That was the worst.
resulted in no responses
Mhm.
when you try to rank with
And
our
this is-
audience.
mine's just a housekeeping
Yes.
thing. I don't know if number 5, how are you, let's see, how likely are you to recommend Rossmore to someone else? I think, isn't that the final question that we want to know? Shouldn't that be at the end? It's just a housekeeping thing. I still like all the questions in here. I don't know if that should be the last one.
Best practices, since some people tend to not finish everything,
Oh, okay,
you want to put them in priority of what you think is the most important thing.
okay.
So generally, we've put, again, this is just what we did at the market research company, is put demographics at the end, because it's usually the least knowledgeable, unless the split is really important. You know, like if you really wanted to know people that were here for a year versus how long that they weren't or whatever. We do also have a couple of other questions about whether or not we need to track whether people are, you know, what their financial is. Do they have a mortgage? And then also if we wanted to track by age to see if preferences, which we do also have a decline to state if somebody doesn't want to do that.
I like all the questions, though. I don't have a problem with any of the questions. It's just that one thing.
So let me ask a question. So sometimes with surveys, you don't want to know the answer to the question that you've asked. Are there any questions here that we think we don't like the answers that we may get?
Well, I have a question too, Dwight. The last two, I guess you'd call them,
5 and 6.
yeah, 5 and 6. Those are, we wanted to know what the group felt about those. Should they be added or not? I think that's the first question we need to get from the group.
5 and 6, the
I
demographic?
think it's actually the other possible questions.
The possible questions.
Oh, the
If you
mortgage and
go
the-
down a little bit, scroll down.
Well, I think we need to know age.
Yeah, okay.
Respondents.
So, and do you have a mortgage? I mean, those are two that we can add. There are yes, no, and a check. So I mean, they don't add a lot of time factor to it. But I think the first thing is, do we add those or not?
I'm inclined not to have the mortgage question. I don't think what are we gonna do with that? You know, and I don't want to send the results to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac.
If I could ask a question too, I always think with a survey that if you're asking a question, you never want the answer to leave you with another question. And with number 5, how likely are you to recommend Rossmore to someone else with needs and interests like yours? If someone answered unlikely or very unlikely, the first thing that pops into my head is, well, why? And we're not answering that with this. To me, that's a survey question that I don't know that it benefits us if we don't know the answer.
Well, the thought behind that was to give us a starting point or sort of like a net promoter score that we would do. And we don't have to do that, of course. It does not really benefit us in the short term. It does potentially give us a beginning place. Like, for example, if we did it annually for all the people that we hired all the people that purchased during 2025, for example, are their scores or answers different than what we had in the past?
The other question I would have, is this anonymous? Well, it can't be,
Yes.
right?
Yes, it is.
What are your
Yeah,
Survey
SurveyMonkey will only allow you to vote once within your IP address. So, I mean, if you want to use multiple devices and go outside of Rossmore, you can vote more than once, but.
But
There are some
Anne, isn't it true, at least my experience with SurveyMonkey, is that you do not track the person's identity?
We don't track their identity, but we do, so the IP address, so
Yeah,
your home
yeah,
has a unique IP address. So if
yes,
you're trying to do it on your laptop and then you take your laptop to Starbucks outside the gate, it's already gonna say, nope, you've already done it. So you
right,
can't-
right. Well, that's a tracking issue.
One
I
vote-
think his question,
One vote per manner.
Yes,
One
but it would
one vote.
maintain the anonymity.
Yeah, it is anonymous.
So
Hold on just a second, Deborah, you had something?
I have a board clarifying question.
Okay.
I think it might be directed towards Ann Peterson. This is from Leanne Hamaji. She sees this survey and she's wondering how the Civility Task Force managed that. Does this survey need to be approved by the full board, or does it just go ahead and do the survey?
Oh, the board has to approve it.
Yeah, the board would have to approve it
Yeah.
Okay,
because this is just a working
as a
task force.
complete, right, okay.
So if I could follow up on my anonymity question. So if the unlikely, very unlikely, could form a focus group, if we could call those people in and talk to them. So is there harm in not making it anonymous?
I think you would, if you were gonna do this, I would do it like you did the food survey. So at the end, it gave you the option, if you would be interested in potentially joining a task force, please put your name and your email address here.
Yeah, because if you ask everyone that they have to identify, you may threaten the compliance.
Or you could put just a line and say, if you checked unlikely, please tell us why. An essay question.
So may I just comment on that? Generally in surveys, this is a satisfaction question. And it is actionable in the sense that if you continue to ask the question over and over again, and you're looking at it as a percentage, if your percentage is pretty low, 80% or lower, then you're getting an unsatisfied audience question. So it becomes actionable in the sense that if you're seeking excellence and you want to improve, you keep repeating it, so.
I will, yeah, definitely, Linda's right. It does give you that platform. I will set expectations in this. I don't know who sees the answers to this. Generally speaking, these don't get really great don't get really high,
Participation?
no, they get high participation, they don't get high scores.
Oh,
Because people there is no end to what people want. So what generally happens in these kinds of situations is people always think of things that they wish that they had. And so you still might get a very likely or a likely, because we're asking for recommendations, but if you get threes in particular, that's not necessarily a bad or unusual thing. And it could, if the answers to this information, if we are required to spread them, it might be misinterpreted by people who don't have a lot of familiarity in marketing or in surveys. That's the one downside to add. If we are required, for example, to share all this information with all the residents, that's probably not something we want to be able to share, because we're not likely to get like, oh, we got a 4.8. That's unlikely to happen.
so to answer that question, yes, we will share this information. This is a public survey whose results will be in the Rossmore News.
Okay, then I would suggest that we don't do this question here.
But the question is also is a point in time. You can catch somebody who might be going through a situation and you're not gonna get the correct answer you want, that they normally would feel in any other time.
Hopefully those things cross each other out. So you also can catch someone when they're really, really excited, So
Yes.
I wouldn't be worried about that in terms of whether the quality of the answer would be incorrect, as long as we get, few tens of people, like above 30, 50, 70 people responding, we should be able to get a good response. But
I like
but
the
would-
comment box on the bottom of this. I like Michael's idea, but putting a comment box there, so no matter what they check, they could say.
I'm looking to Ann because that's a tremendous amount of work.
Mm-hmm,
Tremendous amount of
mm-hmm.
analysis.
Not if it's done in, I mean, if it's done in SurveyMonkey, it's a lot easier because SurveyMonkey collects the data in different ways. So I'd be able to collect the comments very easily.
You can
Yes.
limit it to, you know,
So many letters.
one or two sentences
Oh,
and just,
for characters and
Yeah,
words,
characters. I
yeah.
do it in characters.
I mean, I believe that if I'm understanding this correctly, this is email only. You're not talking about putting out a print version, correct? Correct.
Correct.
That will save a tremendous amount of time.
Yeah, it has to be trackable.
This is only gonna go out to people that have purchased since January 2022.
Right. And our reason for that
2
is,
years.
it's about 3 years, I think, isn't it? Every 22, 23, and 24. And the reason that we did it was that we thought that, and I think Kevin brought this up, and I thought it was really good. People who bought during COVID may have had different needs than people that have post-COVID. And we definitely wanted to make sure that we were catching the crest of the wave
And it's
as
more
opposed to
recently that
somebody who
we've had
bought 10 years ago.
The mortgage issues have only been more recent, so that makes a lot of sense.
And you have to remember with a survey, it's an eyeball into what people are thinking. It's not specific.
So that's what, maybe 1,200 people?
We are going to have one issue, and that is that until about a year and a half ago, when a resident moved in and they filled out the member form, email was there, but it was not a requirement. So many people didn't put their email addresses down. Now we make it a requirement, but for some of those folks that you're capturing for 2022 and 2023, they may not have an email address. And so that you will have some residents who say, well, why didn't you email me?
Well, we could put, I know we're talking about logistics here, but we could put a little thing in the paper that says we're going to be doing this new survey, and if you want to make sure that you're included in it, make sure here's the email address to send your intent, and we'll make sure that you get included.
And Anne, couldn't we just in the paper provide a link?
No, if you provide a link, everyone will take the survey.
Yeah, okay.
You could use a title company too. They typically have that information.
Okay, so let's wrap up on the survey. Did we strike number 5?
I think so.
I don't think we could. I think
You
there's
don't
a
think we
lot
should
of,
strike it?
there's a lot of information in there with the caveat of having a box with a limited number of characters to be able to make a statement.
I'm concerned about the public, the public without the background that we've just talked about, reading this information.
It's like a bad Yelp review. So my inclination is to strike number 5.
In the newspaper, you will not be able to capture all those comments. Everyone will have a different comment.
Yeah.
So you will just be seeing percentages off of that and maybe a couple examples of comments, but yeah, for context.
Yeah, that's too complicated with number 5.
Okay.
And what about the possible questions?
Well, are we going to strike the mortgage? I think we should.
And what about the age? Have we decided we want the age?
Add the age and strike them.
Yes.
Okay.
Is there, Ted?
I think that is something that, well, I'm going to defer to Linda. Is that something that people kind of, when they come in, they got to pay cash, they can't get out? Isn't that something that's important? So shouldn't we know how many do have mortgages here? That'll give us an idea of, is there a problem or not a problem with that? I mean,
It's a problem, I can tell you.
Yeah.
Without a survey, I can tell you.
And it may change.
then we don't need the question. You already have the
We
answer.
don't need the question.
Yeah, it might be a can of worms if we actually track that data.
So if we strike 5 and we strike that and we keep the current age,
Yeah.
we are at 6 questions.
Yes.
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 And then we change the first question to make sure that people get more chances. They can get 5 reasons.
I think, yeah, I just think it should be
I
over
think
the
that's
halfway
fine.
point of the number of things there.
I think that's fine.
Let me ask one more question.
I have a recommendation or a suggestion to add a question to understand what makes the coupon worth it to current residents. So maybe similar to question 1, but to ask, what are the amenities you utilize most that make the coupon worth it? Something to that effect.
Amenities, you mean like the gym, golf, the clubs, that kind of thing?
Yeah, because that can, I think, inform some marketing efforts on what to highlight when questions about the coupon comes up for prospective
Interesting
residents.
thing, because we'd also a chance to
More yard work?
market what the coupon does pay
Yes.
for.
Right.
I like that. Okay, we'll come up with a list of those things.
This is also an opportunity to test our mission and vision statements.
Yeah.
Should we do that through the survey? Or are we the all-knowing task force?
Well,
We're gonna
well,
listen.
the problem is that the timing and you don't, to test those is kind of another topic, and it's gonna add to the timing, how much time people can take to do this. It's gotta be pretty quick.
What we will get though, and we talked about this, is in that first question, we will get priorities. And if
Yes.
the priorities don't match what we have in our mission and vision, that's why one of the reasons to keep it as a draft is you're like, oh, shopping, super important. We didn't, who knew?
Mission
So-
and vision is a draft until it's voted in, until it's gone through the process and voted in, so it.
All right, any other questions? So do we have a motion to recommend this survey as amended
Well,
for
I think we need to show
consideration?
people. what
Yeah,
it
she
is.
needs to create the questions for you guys to review and approve again, right?
I think we have to make the amendments.
If you're,
Won't be till
I
next
can
time.
make them,
Oh,
well,
okay, go
well, so
ahead.
here's part of the problem.
Oh, yeah, gotta
Go ahead.
get done in time, right?
So you're dealing with a timing issue. If we bring the survey back in February, marketing task force votes on it, we need to now do the fetcher in the newspaper for probably 2 weeks. Now you're looking at putting the survey out in late February, early March. You've now also missed the March meeting to discuss the results. So now we're into April and the task force is over in May. You've given yourself almost no time to really talk and
I
develop.
see. Well, so the amendments were pretty easy, right? We just said it, we're gonna drop the 2 questions, 5 and the first option, and then make it move the age up, and it's 6 questions total.
and then
And
you're,
that's it, then.
I think Pranjali's.
And add, yeah,
so, but you can make, obviously negate,
I'm sorry, say it again.
you can obviously negate that increase, because that would take time. So
sorry.
you can negate that one because it would take time.
The one that we just had a suggestion, I think we can do it the same way. Pick, not the stock rank, but that one could be check all that apply. And we just can get a list of things that are commonly in the coupon. And then just say, which of these do you value? And then have them check off the ones that they value. So that, I don't think that would add very much time. Do you agree with that?
But the question is, do we have to bring it back here?
Oh, is that what you're saying?
We could approve it by email.
Yeah, I was thinking, can't we just have it redone and approve it by email?
Yes, you can ratify it, but as long as it's, so in email, just ratify it and then do it in a motion just to get it on record. But for Anne, she would just need the finalized recommendation to put it towards the board meeting.
I think we can
as a
do that in the next few
recommendation.
days.
Yeah.
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 I can do that, I think, this afternoon, or at
It's
least.
gonna be a very busy January board meeting. It's
All right,
marketing.
so do we need a motion to, so we need a motion to adopt this survey as amended. And, oh, thank you, Kevin.
I'll second.
And thank you, Ted. And formally approved by email with the final draft.
Hold on. And so can you restate that motion? I have recommend to the GRF board to adopt the survey as amended.
I'm adding the question to
And to be distributed
Email
by
for approval.
email
Right.
for approval by what?
For approval by email, final draft.
Yeah, there you go.
Draft.
I can never remember what I just said.
And then we need to establish, Deborah, for them the deadline so that it makes that packet, so they know when it has to be back to us.
So I
What do you
didn't,
mean?
What's the deadline?
I was
If we're gonna
thinking the same
include the
thing.
survey in the GRF Assembly packet, what is their deadline to get that emailed and approved?
So that would, so can you, however quickly you can write a report, the hard deadline is the 22nd to have everything in the packet.
So 21st, I need
So
a date.
a
everything
week.
finished? I can update this afternoon.
So
I can
21st,
send
it means
to-
okay, that'd be great, because then you can distribute and that gives everybody
I'll send
time
it
to
to
come
Dwight
back.
late this afternoon.
Awesome. So Kevin moved,
Ted seconded,
Ted seconded. Any comments? All right, roll call.
certainly. Walker,
Yes?
Bentley,
Yes.
Olinger,
Yes,
Dowling,
yes.
Keller,
Yes.
Register,
Yes.
Michelle.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
So we are at our 90 minutes.
Do you want to move this to next time?
I think we'll have to. So there's important information that Ann has from this SEO audit, and it's gonna tie in with the conversation we want to have about online presence and the marketing plan that, by the way, Aya and Ranjali have wonderfully volunteered to put together a marketing plan for our online presence. And then what I want you to think about for the next meeting, and that's agenda item number 7B that we'll defer to next month. Identifying marketing goals and objectives for the target audience. We need to start narrowing down what we can accomplish and deliver. What is that deliverable that we have by May? And what's the low-hanging fruit that we can tackle? Because we get into a lot of the little branches of things that can be done, but there's big stuff and some other recommendations that may come with that. So be thinking about that for next month. All right, with that, I want to thank everybody for your participation and contributions. I think we're making progress, and we look forward to seeing everybody next month. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
thank you.
I didn't accomplish.